Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in blue and we are learning to convert between fractions and percentages. And this is the second video in relation to this. The previous video we learned how to go from fractions to percentages. We're now going the other way around, going backwards from percentages to fractions. And we'll show us a few examples throughout the way and how to reverse what we did last video to answer new types of questions. So our first example is, let's say, 10%. So the first step we need to do is we need to recognize that 10% is 10 divided by 100. And that means we have 10 or 1/10 or 10 100ths of our fraction. So we can get rid of that. And once we're in this fraction form, this 10 over 100, we are looking to simplify this. So at the top, there are 10, there's 1 10 there and 10 down the bottom. So if we simplify that, we'll get 1 over 10. Okay, let's have a look at another example. What about 25%? So that 25, we know it's a percentage, so that's 25 out of 100. And we then need to look to simplify this fraction. Well, there's 125 at the top, and that 100 would actually be 4 25s, so that would be 1/4. And then let's try a more difficult one. What about something like 45%? So that would be 45 over 100. And we need to think what factor, so we learn about factors, what factor does 45 and 100 both have in common, and the highest factor? And I think they've both got a 5 in common, and that means there would be 9 5s up the top and 25s down the bottom. And let's try a weirder one. Let's try 18%. So that would make it 18 over 100. And then, well, I know they've both got a 2 in common. Let's take those 2s out. So that would be 19 over 50. So we'll get that down, 19 over 50. So let's change pen colors. We'll go through a few more and then I'll let us get into some questions. So let's try a weird one, 37%. Well, that would be 37 over 100. And we need to think to ourselves, what factor does 37 and 100 have in common? And they're actually, the only factor is 1, so that means we can't simplify that fraction. Okay, what about something like 12.5%? So we're dealing with point percentages now. So that's 12.5 over 100. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get rid of that decimal point by making it out of thousands. So I can do that. And then we need to think, what do they have in common? Well, I know they've both got a 5 in common. So there's 25 5s up the top. And there's 200 5s down the bottom, and they also have a 5 in common. So there's 5 5s up the top there, and there's 45s down the bottom. And yet again, they've still got 5s in common. There's 1 5 up the top and 8 5s down the bottom. So that would actually be 1/8. So that was a very tricky question. So let's go for another one. Let's go, what about 60%? Well, that would be 60 divided by 100. And they've both got 20s in common. There are 3 20s up the top and 5 20s down the bottom. And our final question for this shorter video, what about a bigger number? What about 150%? So that would be 150 divided by 100. And we can see the top, well, that's got 3 50s, and the bottom, that's got 2 50s. So that would make it 3 over 2. And you may also put that as a mixed fraction, 1 and 1/2. All right, so hopefully you found this video useful. Now let's crack into some questions where we convert percentages to fractions.